Welcome back to Logistics and Leadership. On today's episode, we're going to talk about the evolution of a successful sales rep and how to overcome those Sunday scaries when you don't know where your revenue is going to come from. I know a lot of times, man, we've dealt with those.
You feel it when you say that.
Yeah,
I feel
the
it.
Sunday scaries, Sunday blues. I know in logistics, especially in a sales role, your base or your metrics are on revenue. How much revenue can I put up in a certain week, in a certain month? What are some ways that you've done that you can share with our audience to overcome the Sunday scaries or to prep for the next week? How do you do that, man?
Yeah, so I think I'm not as heavily involved running a book of business, so we call it in logistics, running a book of business as I used to be. But you talk about the evolution of a sales rep. We both came from TQL, a phenomenal sales training program.
Yep.
I mean, they literally gave you the tools and education on the industry and showed you what to do. It was your job to execute on what you're supposed to do. So when you start, you're at zero. You have zero clients. Majority of the time, you have zero clients, zero loads, zero revenue, and your job is to go out there and start building a book of business. In my experience, you're not just blow it out of the water, when you start.
Yeah.
That is a serious process. I hear you say this all the time, but it's like a 12 to 24 month time frame where you really start to build that momentum.
Yeah.
So for me, and I won't get too deep into it, but for me, my mentality was I need to build up and close as many clients as possible.
Right.
I don't care if they're moving hay, penguins, ice cubes, dog shit. I did not care if I could make money on it. I was going after it.
Did not care. Yeah.
So I went out. I was super aggressive. I was terrible on the phone. I've said this before, but I mumbled. I talk fast. Not as bad anymore, but I have an underbite, so it doesn't help. But I was just going to pump out the calls.
Yeah.
I didn't care how many. I was just going to outwork people, pump out the calls. And I knew I was going to land business at some point.
Right.
It was just a matter of when. So as I did that, I figured out who values the service and communication and what I bring to the table. And I started focusing on them as you're building a book of business. And granted, this is 12 to 18 months into the job.
Yeah.
So when you're doing that, you start setting yourself up for the following weeks. You're prioritizing, certain clients that are, they value what you bring. They pay their bills. They're not undercutting you because another carrier came in at $25 cheaper.
Yeah.
So you prioritize them, and then you start getting that like more consistent volume because you're having the conversation up front on, hey, did I execute there? Did I do a good job? Are you happy with my service? How about I run those, moving forward? How often do you have them?
Yeah.
So you start building in that consistency into your book of business once you start.
I think that's what everybody wants, consistency, right? Like, I think that's the biggest, I wouldn't say maybe the biggest, but one thing that we hear a lot, especially from salespeople, is, man, I just want a consistent book of business. I want to know what's coming in. It's like, we all do, right? Like we all of us want to know, what the sales forecast is going to look like for next week. And, the reality is nobody has a crystal ball. We all want consistency, even today, even after, 15 years in the business. Like we all want consistency. We want to know what's coming ahead. And that's going to reduce those Sunday scaries, right? When you come in and you have 10 loads booked on a Monday or on a Sunday night, you're going to feel a lot better coming into work Monday morning rather than you have one load booked, for $200 in gross profit.
Exactly.
Right. But yeah, I think everybody wants that consistency. I think it's, just a matter of putting in the work. I know we talked about it on previous podcasts before. Actually, one of those that, comes to mind is episode 33, Unpacking Success in Logistics. If you're, a listener of the show, go back and listen to that one. There's a lot of takeaways that folks, especially starting out in logistics, can use in their daily process. But I think with some of those, it's having a mindset of I'm going in there, I'm getting after it. You mentioned this, but the hustle mentality, being at your desk, making the calls, sending the emails, being available. I love this story because it just goes to show you on the hustle mentality. And this is early on. I think we were in Lexington. I think it was a coil customer. I love the story because it's a tribute to the industry and some of the successful people in our industry, right? Where I think you packed your lunch every single day. You never went out. out. And then I think on a Friday, I think you like rewarded yourself with like Subway or something. And you went out.
Sounds right. Yeah.
You went out to Subway. You came back and you told me this story. Like, man, I'm pissed off. This customer who sends out a blast email to all of her carriers, and she sends like a load list, and it's the person that gets the load calls back or emails back right away saying, hey, I can take this lane for this rate, and then they book the loads, right? So they're still working off an email format. And I think you went to lunch that Friday and you missed out on a couple of like Indiana to Florida loads where you were making good margin. Yep. And you were pissed off. You're like, man, that was $1,500 in GP on 4 loads or whatever, and I missed out on that because I left my desk. And to me, that just goes to show you like the hustle mentality has to be there. And I think a lot of times, like, you hear people say it in our industry, but the best ability is availability sometimes. And I agree with that to a certain extent, where you have to be available. You have to be there for your clients for those opportunities that come up, because you never want to miss a phone call as a salespeople or salesperson, or in your case, like an email. Right?
Yeah, and that was about 2012.
Yeah. So we're going back. But
Motorola, Razor phone, flip phone. I don't think I had my laptop that took everywhere, but I don't even know if I had email on it. But yeah, it was that was a painful one. I think the next time I left the office was my honeymoon.
Yeah. Well, I think we learn it, and I think that to me is like the hustle mentality. I think you have to have that the first several years, the first 2-3 years. Those opportunities come up, and sometimes they come up on Friday afternoon at 5:15. Sometimes they come up on Saturday at 10 a.m. And we have to be there for our clients in our industry. Fortunately or unfortunately, for those people that don't want to work nights or weekends, we have to be available to service those clients.
You mentioned it. Availability is, what was it? The availability is best ability.
Ability is availability. Yeah, I'm bad with tongue twisters.
Yeah, I'm not going to try repeating that, but you're exactly right. And I think it's ingrained in, and I know you're similar to this too, but like it's ingrained in me where, you have 4 kids, I have 3 kids now, but it might be 6:00. I know. A prospect shoots me an email, I'm having dinner, and like response time and
so damn hard.
Responsiveness and just being, available and getting a reply back. Cause if this is someone I've been working for 6 to 12 months, I get an opportunity. I don't care. Like Carly gets it, but it's painful because I don't want to miss this opportunity. In my mind, there's someone that is younger, more energetic, hungry. They were in my position, 15 years ago, but they might respond and get this opportunity where I missed it. Yeah. And I think it's tough for us to relate because we know what it takes to find that success. Sure. And then work-life balance is such, a huge, topic of conversation now where these generations coming into the workforce, once they leave work, I'll see you tomorrow. Yeah. Like I'm not looking at my phone. It's like, guys, we put in so much work to get these opportunities. Yeah. So when the iron's hot, you better effing strike. Yeah. Because you don't know when that next opportunity is coming. Sure. So be available until the point down the road, we talk about the evolution down the road when now that's a client that you've been working with for 3 years and they're not sending that out to 10 carriers to
they're coming to you.
They're calling you after hours and you don't have to be as responsive because you're getting that phone call.
Well, I think it's life phases, right? And I think that's why we see so many folks in our industry that are from the ages of, 21 to 30 that, they have a ton of opportunity and they're creating more opportunities for themselves because they're in that life phase. They're probably newly married. Maybe they're not, maybe they're single. They don't have any kids. They don't have a lot of responsibilities on the home front at this point yet. And they're able to respond kind of like the competitor you're talking about. I do think that once you get a little bit older and you get married, you start having kids, you got a lot more responsibilities and maybe you're not able to get to that email at 6:30 or whatever. And I think those are life phases or life stages that we're all in. And I think it makes it a little challenging. So my advice to anybody that's listening today, that's in that phase of, 21 to 30, 32 years old, whatever, and you don't have a lot of responsibilities. Hell, even if you're, 45 and you don't have a ton of responsibilities, use that time for your business to build it up and get that consistency. Because I think that's different when you talk, like you said it earlier about evolution, but the first several years of building it up is different than year 4, 5, 6, 7, 10. Right now, that's consistent business coming in. You know what's happening. But those first 2-3 years, they're always tough for every single sales rep out there.
Yeah. And I've seen nearly your entire career in logistics besides, your first year when you started, because you started.
I don't think you wanted to see that.
Macy's turned you down.
Yeah, Macy's turned me down. Yeah. I was stumbling at that point, and yeah.
You and I both. But you worked with one of the top produce companies in the U.S., and I remember, you share your story with some of our team, and it's like you had a small window every weekend where you gave yourself that freedom. You're still responsive and had your phone, but like you were working through the weekends. Yeah. And now it's like, well, I worked all weekend. It's like, okay, well, like that's the work you have to put in to get to that next stage in the evolution.
Yeah. Well, I think that the window, I think it's different for every client, right? Like I think produce is different than dry and flatbed. But I think that if you do have somebody that's in the perishable space and they had opportunities for the weekend, my schedule used to be, I'd work every Saturday from 8 to noon, and that might be from the house or whatever, taking care of business. And then I would give that 36-hour window up until like 9 o'clock on Sunday night, right? Still be available, still be there, but like at least I could have some sort of life in between. Yep. And again, that's going back to like the life stage or the life phase, whatever you want to call it. I was newly married, didn't have kids yet. I could put that time in. And, so that's something that, it's, going back and looking at it, I'm like, damn, like, okay, yeah, I did put in that time. But the account probably needed it.
Yeah, here we are trying to put in more time at this stage in our life.
I know. It's hard, man.
It's like up here.
The balance, yeah.
Brian, I do want to touch on one thing, and the evolution of a successful sales rep, because I think this is really important.
Okay.
Sales reps that have established their book of business. I think the number one thing I noticed with the most successful sales reps is they always have a pipeline.
Sure.
It doesn't matter how successful they are. Yeah. They can hit the milestones, accolades, go to the president's clubs. Yeah. But one guy comes to mind, and Rob English.
Yeah.
There's another one. God, you would know him, but same deal.
Yeah.
One of the more tenured employees at our previous company. Yeah. Hit president's club every single year. Was always at the top of the rankings. Yeah. And the guy still prospected and closed business. Yeah. It's that continued prospecting where, we experienced it as a company. I've experienced it personally with my biggest account, 10 years ago. Yeah. Lost them. Well, thank God I had a pop, and I didn't know any better at the time. I was just going to be prospecting regardless. But we saw it as a company where we let off the gas a little bit on the sales front. Sure. Our pipeline dwindled as a team. Yep. And now we're trying to play catch up. Whereas if we're doing the work and what we should have been focused on the whole time, that blow of lost business wouldn't have impacted us as much. So continued prospecting, I think, is always important for the most successful sales reps.
Totally agree. And I think that, we harp on the quantity of calls early on in somebody's career. But I think even as you progress and you're a veteran, I still think there needs to be a level of prospecting. Is that 100 calls a day? No, it's not. Is it 10 to 15 touches? Yeah, I think that's attainable for anybody running, a book that's 10 or 30, 40, 50 loads a week. You can still get in 10 prospecting calls a day to those clients. Now they are going to be more strategic. Yep. And, a book that comes to mind is Jeb Blount or Jeb Blount. He has a book called Fanatical Prospecting, and it's a phenomenal book. Yeah. It's literally, we've said it numerous times on this show before, but it's like our sales Bible. And it's something that, we go back to all the time, and it has, tactics and strategies on how to keep your pipeline full. And if you don't know the guy, please subscribe to, his email newsletters, on LinkedIn. He's a guy that, he gets it. He speaks our language. Which is
crazy. I'm glad you said this, and I'm going to jump in real quick. Yeah. It doesn't matter. So if you're listening and you haven't, read any of his books or heard of him, it doesn't matter what industry you're in. Right. I feel like Jeb is in logistics when I read or listen to stuff. Yeah. But he speaks the language of sales, prospecting. Yeah. But go on.
No, I think that's exactly it. He speaks the language, and he talks about keeping your pipeline full and how to do it. So to me, he's one of the best sales trainers out there, and he gets the way that we prospect, and he understands it. And he also has a podcast that he runs. But yeah, I think he's a great trainer. I think that's something that we rely on him quite a bit. I know we've handed out a handful of those books to a lot of our sales reps as well.
Another thing I would add that I feel like it translates across, anyone that's found success in logistics or sales in general is they genuinely enjoy the relationships and the pursuit of new business.
Yeah, that's the best part.
The top people always prioritize the relationship. And when you do that, there's a genuine curiosity to connect with these, potential clients. And that's what makes the whole pursuit enjoyable. Brian, you're phenomenal at more of the account penetration and growing accounts. I'm obsessed with the chase. Like, I enjoy the chase more than the kill. So pursuing all these opportunities and having a strong pipeline is what's fulfilling to me, because I know that there's plenty of opportunity there, and I'm going to get some wins. It's just a matter of time. We can tell them till we're blue in the face, hey,
sure,
this job is tough.
Yeah.
You make a lot of phone calls. You're going to fail. People are going to hang up on you. It's like, oh, I got that. I just want to make a lot of money. But they don't know how to handle adversity. So then when they start actually facing those things, they crumble.